Good afternoon. This is Rick Roman here at EEAP, and as usual, sitting alongside of
Michael Crum,
President of EEAP. And we've got another presentation here for you today that we hope will help you guys in your compliance and safety efforts. We are talking today about the California IIPP requirements.
My gosh, Rick, that figure looks hideous.
It does.
Who was putting these pictures together for us?
That is our wonderful graphics person, Carla, that does this for us.
I think she's a little bit demented to feel the need to put all these things in there all the time. We're going to need to get her counseling for that.
So the IIPP stands for Injury and Illness Prevention Program, and that's what we're going to be talking about here today. So Michael, if you will go ahead and advance us to our next slide. So we're going to be going over here what is an IIPP and who needs one,
yep,
the additional documentation that is required, the 8 elements of an effective IIPP, when updates are required, and then we're going to get into questions and answer. If you have any questions as we go along, please go ahead and put them in now. Don't wait till the end, and we'll just be able to go ahead and start answering your questions.
And hello to everybody out there that is saying hello. Hello, hello.
All right, let's go ahead and get started then. So what is an IIPP? It says the Cal OSHA code says that every employer shall establish and implement and maintain an effective injury and illness prevention program. So a lot of time people believe that the IIPP, Michael, is the entire safety program. Elaborate a little bit on exactly what that IIPP element is.
The IIPP is basically an umbrella, if you will, of all of your safety programs. It is an overview of how you are going to communicate all of the processes within your safety program. They are basically a series of 8 policies or 8 basic rules of what you're going to do to implement the safety and the safe work conditions at your facility.
Great. You know, a lot of times you got to do some customization in this aspect. Exactly how much customization actually takes place in this portion of the safety program?
Well, you know, the customization of it for people is a decent amount. Is it as much as in other areas? No, but to suggest that it's not could be customized would be against Cal OSHA law. But the reality of it is the IIPP is not going to spell out any great amount of details when it comes to how the programs are going to work. It basically goes over broad spectrums of we are going to do this, we're going to do that, and then you get into the details within the programs themselves, such as the Injury Illness Prevention Program or the Lockout Tagout Program, detailing those out. So these are 2 separate entities when it comes to your safety program.
Okay, so is there more than one way that an IIPP can be written?
There is more than one way that an IIPP can be written. The first way is going to be based off a safety committee. You can build an IIPP based off a safety committee by naming the members of the committee, the responsible persons, and then being able to show that you're doing notes and meetings and that your safety committee is effective. The other way, and we prefer to do it the second way, is off the key man principle, where you name one person responsible in the injury illness prevention program and then he just delegates the tasks. Now with this key man setup, you can still have safety committees. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting we don't have safety committees, but I am suggesting when we build the book like this, it's easier to implement, it's easier to defend if it does get challenged in the hearing, and it really is just something that the safety committees can happen and you can keep notes, but doesn't have to be brought into the book.
Great. What about, a lot of times we talk to companies that are relatively small and they tend to think that they're small enough, and it's usually they've got that magic number of 10 out there that they think they don't need to have this. Do people with 10 employees need to have an IIPP?
There are a lot of rules, a lot of rumors out there that talk about in California that if you're under 10, you don't need an injury illness prevention program. That is not the truth. An injury illness prevention program is necessary by everybody in the state of California and around. Well, let me take that back. State of California, not other states. So in California, they're all required. Now, if you're under 10 employees, there are certain documents that you don't have to keep records of. And I think we will be covering that, will we, Rick?
Yes, we will.
So we'll be covering that. But the reality of it is, if you have 1 employee, and you so happen to be that employee because you are incorporated, thus you need an injury illness prevention program.
So let's get into exactly what constitutes an employee, because as you mentioned, in a case where a company is incorporated, the owner is actually considered to be an employee of the corporation. So there's one right there. But aside from that, what would you constitute to be an employee?
An employee is anybody that works for the company that is getting a payroll check. Now, I'll get a little bit more specific. At EEAP, we are a corporation. Thus, I, being the president and owner of EEAP, I am an employee of the company technically. So thus, if it was just me at EEAP, which I wouldn't be able to get all the work done, we all know that, without Lauren McFain and Rick Roman here, I'd die. But the reality of it is I would be an employee and need to have it. I'll give you another example. I have a brother. He is a brilliant man. He used to build tons of spec homes back in the day, and he was a sole proprietorship. He was not an employee of his company. And thus, injury illness prevention program he did not need, as long as he had no employees. Now, what constitutes as an employee on the other side? Well, a temporary laborer that he would pick up from a reliable place would be something of an employee, and thus he would need an injury illness prevention program at that time. But as long as he had no laborers, no temporary laborers, he would not need an IIPP.
So if at different times of the year, and you might have more employees, so you might have 7 or 8 employees normally, but so you're saying maybe at periods of the year you pick up a couple of temps and now you're over 10,
yes.
and some of these other rules that we're going to talk about here down the road here would apply to those people then, because it's for basically if they had at any point over 10 employees, it's not at the time when Cal OSHA comes necessarily.
Correct. So if they have 5 employees and they're doing their thing, but all of a sudden they hire 2 temporary guys or another 6 temporary guys and they hit that threshold or go over, they would need to have all of the programs and keep the records for that period of time that they had the employees.
Great. And where is this IIPP and their other documentation required to be made available or kept, so to speak?
They're supposed to be kept in an area that is available to the employees. This can be very tough for people because their employees are scattered all about. So the logic of this is you need to keep it. Now, does it need to be in the workshop like an MSDS binder? No, that is just not the case. But you need to keep this IIPP in a spot where your employees can have access to it. And this can be a number of ways. Number one, it could be in the office on a shelf in a binder. It could be in a manager's office that you have to just ask for, and he can provide it for them if they need it. But better yet, and if you're a client of EEAP, we just love this feature, the app that you can download off Google, am I correct, Rick, off or Apple as we speak right now, that app you can get your IIPP on and your employees can have access to it everywhere they're at. So thus we can comply with that in a better way nowadays.
And the same thing with the contractors who
Yes,
are required to have that out at their job sites anyway.
Right, so if they're on the job sites, the IIPP is there on the employee's iPhone or the employee next to him who has an iPhone and has it. So as long as one of the employees has an iPhone that they can get to it, we can say that the employees have access to the IIPP on the job site, especially if the manager drives away or the foreman drives away with the book in their car and now we're out of luck.
Exactly. Go ahead to the next slide here. So,
additional programs as needed.
Yes. Michael, talk a little bit about there's not a whole bunch. Those are some of the programs that we offer and can write for our clients.
So if you had everything problems in the world, this is what your safety binder might be titled in the index. Number one, the IIPP, 2 Code of Safe Practice. Now they don't have to be in this order. This is just an order that we put them in. Don't worry about the importance of that. But reality of it is, I'll just name off a few that I can promise you that you'll probably need in your injury illness prevention program. Now remember, when I say in it, remember these are sub-programs that we've done webinars on a few of these in the past, and we'll do more webinars on these others. But the Code of Safe Practice is a standalone document. The Emergency Action Plan is a standalone document. You can go back and see in our history the other webinars we've done on that. Energy Controlled Lockout, Tagout, Hazardous Communication, and Fire Prevention Plan. Accident Investigation Plan. These are the basics of what an injury illness plan should be filled with. Depending on what you do for business, there might be more in there that are there. But there is a difference between a Cal OSHA code talking about a program and a Cal OSHA code talking about a circumstance that you need training on. This is a list of the programs that you would need, but you might do training on other things, but it doesn't have to have a full body program.
All right. So Before we get into the 8 elements here of an effective IIPP, the first thing that it's going to start with is a policy statement. And Michael, what's taking place here in the policy statement?
A policy statement is a broad vision. It's like a mission statement, if you will, of your vision of what you see your company doing with safety. This can be very customized. It can be something that you put together, but you need to have something that you put together that is your basic policy statement saying, overall, we want to keep our employees. This is the get it ready, the get you going kind of thing. This is what you really just need to put into place.
All right, let's go to the next one here. And so let's get into the actual 8 steps of it. So the first thing is identifying the responsible person. And you mentioned the 2 different ways
Yes, Rick.
of writing it, and this is the way that we prefer, where you identify the responsible person.
And when you identify the responsible person, you are going to delegate the tasks. Obviously, because your name is in the book, because you're probably the owner or the owner's name is in the book, or somebody that is very important, obviously, they're going to delegate the tasks. So just because your name's in there doesn't mean you're doing all the work. You really need to be able to delegate the tasks.
Okay, on to the next here. So the next step is ensuring a system ensuring employee compliance. So it includes a system for ensuring that employees comply with safe and healthy workplace practices. Substantial compliance with this provision includes recognition of employees who follow safe and healthful work practices, training and retraining programs, disciplinary actions, which we've done a webinar on, any other such means that ensures the employee compliance with safe and healthful work practices.
Now, what Rick is reading is he's reading the Cal OSHA code that explains what the second part in your injury illness program must do. Now, you must have a part in there that names the responsible person and second, this mindset. You must put in there a statement that complies with this paragraph. That can be trickier than it sounds. With every inspector out there having at times a different way to interpret the Cal OSHA code, this is very difficult. So some people think it's very easy to write an IIPP, and you know what? It very well could be. Your book has probably been in front of a number of inspectors that gave it the old thumbs up. The real question is, if somebody dies, or it's going to be a hard-pressed thing, does your IIPP, is it bulletproof? Are there any little holes in it that could be figured out? And this is something that can be frustrating for a lot of people. So just know if you're a client of EEAP, your injury illness prevention program is written in a way that has never been cited. And that is a great accomplishment after 25 years of service.
Fantastic. So the key elements there again is basically instituting ways to train your employees, to encourage them to work safely, having a disciplinary program, and so that is that element. And we will move on to the next element here, which is a system.
I went too far.
No, you did not.
Sorry about that, Rick.
Okay, so now we have a system for communicating with employees. Include a system for communicating with employees in a form readily understandable by all affected employees on matters relating to occupational safety and health, including provisions designed to encourage employees to inform employers of hazards at the work sites without fear of reprisal. Substantial compliance with this provision includes meetings, training programs, postings, written communications, and a system for anonymous reporting or notification by employees about hazards. Labor management, safety, and health committees, and other means that ensure communication with the employees.
Now, the communication with the employees, Rick, can take place through a training process, through a monthly meeting. It can take place through, obviously, these signs. This blue sign, for example, there is a blue sign that you have on the screen that says Notice, Anonymous Reporting of Safety Hazards. We have that on the EEAP sticker store that you're more than welcome to purchase. I think they're just a couple bucks. But the reality is you've got to have an anonymous way. The 800 number would bring your employees to us. We would take the confidential complaint that we will obviously keep confidential and bring to you so that we can do 2 things. Number 1, comply with the Cal OSHA law as it stands, and also make sure that we keep this in a way, this complaint in a system that can be dealt with quickly and fast and as private as possible.
Okay, now this is one of the areas where it talks about with the exception for having less than 10 employees and permitting to communicate and doing some of this training and not necessarily having to have a record written record on that aspect. But again, as we mentioned,
the nuttiness of you having 5 employees or 3 employees, and you're suggesting that because the Cal OSHA law doesn't require the record itself, that I'm not going to do it. I'm going to suggest to you that even though the exception is there, the exception is about the actual training record itself to be able to sign their name to and saying they've done it. But you need to have the IIPP or the Injury Illness Prevention Program. You need to have the documents. You need to have the training material so you can get it done. You just don't need the signature place of the records. And so if that employee ever gets injured, you really, even with 3 employees, this could be a difficult thing when an employee says, I don't remember being trained. We definitely need that piece of document.
Absolutely. So even though technically it's not the Cal OSHA code, I mean, it's the smart thing to do. And as it talks about here, wanting to encourage, you know, your employees to report hazards to you, and so that you can correct those things, and then having the anonymous way to report. Let's go on to the next if we could. So the next is a system for identifying and evaluating hazards. Include procedures for identifying and evaluating workplace hazards, including scheduled periodic inspections to identify unsafe work conditions, work practices, and these inspections shall be made to identify and evaluate hazards.
You got to have periodic inspections. At the end of the day, you got to. But in your IIPP, you actually need a paragraph that explains the black heading that Rick has just read. This is vitally important. At EEAP, we have the inspection processes. You'll notice at the bottom corner of the screen, there is a gray box. There is the first one, an item number, a hazard, or what the exposure is, location, but specifically talking about the bottom end of it when it comes to the day completed and the person assigned to. This is really based off these Cal OSHA principles that we know to be so real, to be able to help people comply, that this just makes it easier. But you need to be doing periodic inspections. Everything that we can see, that means once a quarter at the very least. But if you're a job site or construction, that very well could be every day, Rick. You got to really make sure your places are safe and nothing's changed.
Exactly. So then as we move on here, we're talking about an injury and illness investigation procedures. Sometimes you're just going to have accidents happen at the workplace, and when that happens, you need to have an element that covers how to investigate those so that you can fix the problems, prevent them from happening again. Michael?
And I want to make it clear that with all of these programs that we're putting in place and with all these policies that we're telling you need to have, just remember this, that the injury and illness prevention program should have 8 parts. Every slide, starting at the beginning of this when we talked about the responsible person slide with the man standing on the little, though every slide is a point, right, Rick?
Yes, it is.
We might have should have numbered them now that I sit here and read the screen, but these are all points. So this last one that we did, the injury illness investigation procedures, you need to have a policy in place. And this could be just a paragraph that talks about the simplisticness of how you're going to investigate all these things. If you're an EEAP client, this is what your IIPP is built with. This is what we put it in place with to ensure and to be able to get that ready to go for you.
Great. All right. Next, we need a system that we talked about doing the inspections to identify those hazards. Now we need to have a system to correct those hazards. So include methods and procedures. Include methods and procedures for correcting unsafe or unhealthy conditions, work practices, work procedures in a timely manner based on the severity of the hazard.
So, system for correcting unsafe work conditions. You've got to be able to have a system for doing that. And what that really looks like is that when EEAP comes out and our inspectors do the inspection, you need to have a system of how they do that. And this system we recommend, obviously, is this. You take the report that we put in place, you correct the items, and then you put the date and the part in there. I think the next slide is going to show that a little bit clearer, Rick.
Right.
But the reality is you got to have a policy in your IIP that suggests this is how we are going to fix these things when we find them from the first part, from the last section.
And the key is they're talking about unsafe conditions and also work practices.
Right.
So correcting that hazard, if it's a work practice, it may mean implementing a disciplinary action or doing some retraining. Thus, you see we have the pictures down there where it looks like somebody's training with an employee or using the app here that we have to maybe do a lesson to go over a topic because somebody was found doing something that they've already been trained not to do. And when it comes to correcting the things, some of you might be in a position where you have your own in-house maintenance, or you may have to call somebody in to do it for you. But you have to have a system to where you can correct those things. Great. All right, go to the next here. So training and instruction procedures. So you have to provide training and instruction when your program's first established to all of your new employees, to all employees giving a new job or job assignments where training has not previously been received. Whenever a new substance or process or procedures or equipment are introduced into the workplace that represent a new hazard. Whenever an employer is made aware of a new or previously unrecognized hazard, and for supervisors to familiarize themselves with the health and safety hazards which their employees under their direction might be exposed.
So when it comes to this, you just got to know that everything Rick said is very true, but sometimes when the people get misunderstood by that definition, when it says when policy procedures change or they expand or what was the terminology, Rick? Introduced workplace employees may have the training that has not previously done. So anything that's changed, new, or the process has evolved. That is really a vague thing. And so you might find that if you're using a machine and this week we're using an extension tool, but next week we won't, you would be required to do training on that. When you think about all the environment of your building and everything that you've got going on, from we like to store the material over here to now we store the material over there, training and lessons have to be done. If you are not doing, in a manufacturing setting, a small 10 to 15 minute lesson once a month to update people on changes that have happened, you're going to find yourself, you're not in really a spot to say that you are fully compliant with Cal OSHA. You might be able to give somebody a slam bam lesson right in the beginning when they get hired, and that's obviously the right choice to help them understand, train them. But if you're not keeping up with periodic lessons of a variety of topics with all the circumstance, you're just no way going to keep things fresh in their minds, things in order where we can keep our workers' comp rates down and the accidents low. So you really need to be doing some sort of ongoing safety training at the facilities, especially on the construction sites, which we know the rule is every 10 business days. But at the manufacturing level, once a month seems to be sufficient. Sometimes more is necessary depending on the environment.
And I'm glad you bring that up because you know, outside the compliance issue is you know, our number one goal obviously is to keep the employees safe. And people just are not going to remember everything. You go through a new orientation, you might slam that guy with a bunch of lessons on all of the things that they're going to be dealing with, but they're going to need to be refreshed on some of those things. You know, fire extinguishers is a prime example that I use to people when we teach that lesson. Is, you know, it's just not one of those things that you have to use every day. And if someone taught you how to do it 5-10 years ago, you may not be ready if you need to do it tomorrow. So a refresher on that is great.
And remember, when you do the refresher on that, location of where they're at. You might have forgotten about the dang things, Rick, over the last few whiles. One of the things that we started up a few years ago that we just really have been really taken off is the customized lessons process. You'll see some lessons at the bottom of the screen there. Rick, if you mind going back to that screen. At the bottom of the right-hand screen, you can see some basics of these: fire, backs and liftings, wood, safety, lockout, tagout. We've kind of selected some of the basics one, but if you go into your client center, your EEAP client center, if you don't have one of those, call us in the office, ask for the beautiful Therese, she'll take care of you and set you up on that. But the reality is, of these lessons we write custom at no additional charge to you, and you really can call in and get some great safety lesson topics. So this section here, the training and instruction procedures, you can really hone down into and get that thing rocking and rolling to make sure you have the topics you need to make sure that thing works.
Exactly. All right. So then the next element is the record keeping. We talked about obviously performing inspections and doing training with your employees, and you need to maintain these records here. So you got to, you know, here it shows a copy at the top here of what one of our typical inspection reports. So not only is it an inspection report, once you've made the corrections, it's your abatement form. So now you're able to show Cal OSHA that you're finding and correcting your hazards, and then your signature sheets. Now, if you'll talk a little bit, Michael, out over here where it does mention about the time frame here for keeping these, it says for at least 1 year. And,
Yes, we know.
what do we recommend there?
We're recommending 3 to 4 years, I'll be really honest with you. 1 year is what the Cal OSHA code says. We checked it all day long. We know about it. We verified there was no updates. It's 1 year. But a lot of times they do ask for multiple years. Now, I recommend you keep your document longer than 1 year. The reality of it is that the 1 year process is barely long enough to get your feet wet into it. 3 to 4 years is, I think, a bare minimum to be able to save these training records. You'll find that you can do them in a way that makes them easy. Now, for us at EEAP, sometimes gathering these records can be very difficult. We've created this app. Now, the app itself is downloaded off of Apple or Google Play. Is that the name of it, Rick?
Yeah, the Google Play Store. Yes.
I am an Apple guy, so I wouldn't know that terminology. Apple people are better, I think. Just kidding. All right, so moving on. So the logic here is you can do that. Now, the IIPP itself is not something you can download. So I did see a question come through on that. You cannot download an IIPP. You basically have to write it for yourself. And I know there's rubber stamp cutter copies on the internet, but this is something you really need to be able to create. If you're not a client of EEAP, call us. We'd love to help you with that. If you are, we've already created it for you and had the interview and gone through that with you, and you're really locked and loaded.
Okay. So those are the 8 elements of having an effective IIPP. So, you know, and along with the other programs, these regulations change over time. And so there are times where you will have to update these things. So if you bought something or had something created, you know, 2, 3, heck, even 6 months ago, forget 5 years ago, even 6 months ago, there's been new codes written since that you may not be in compliance. So making sure that you're staying up to date. If you have a change in a responsible person, you have to update. If your business moves, it's location specific, so you would have to update it. If you have a change in procedures, if there's a change in Cal OSHA code, these are all times that you need to update your programs.
You really do. And so the great thing about being an EEAP client is that we keep these updated for you at all times. When the new heat illness 2015 rules started coming out, we knew about them in advance. We knew about the deadlines. We had them all in your client centers locked and loaded. The great thing about what you have is that your client center has all the freshest IIPP, freshest everything. I know a few of you guys like to write things and to print up the binders and put them in your workshops. I think that is awesome, especially on the job sites. But just know this. The IIPP updates do hit your web version on your client center. We do send out emails letting people know that happens, but a lot of times you guys, there might be just one paragraph on one sheet that gets updated to comply with the law. So you got to make sure you're doing it as soon as possible. I do recommend with the new app that's on iTunes and Google Play that you do have your people download that. Give them the username and password. If you do not have one, just call in, ask for the girls to schedule your appointments. They have a list of everybody's usernames and passwords they can give you instantly. Basically, anybody that picks up the phone in my office will be able to give you your free username and password if you are a current client. If you're not a current client, well, give us a call. I'll give you one anyways, and for temporary reasons.
And otherwise, if you're doing this in-house, you just got to make sure that you have somebody that is really staying on top of this stuff.
Yes.
It moves fast.
It does.
And so you just got to be staying on top of it and make sure that your stuff is current and up to date. So back to the app, Michael. We were talking about the app a little bit.
All right, so the app we've been telling you is coming. It is here. Just a real quick plug. The safety app is here. It is now available on the Apple Store or Google Play for those 2 things. Are there any other areas that it's going to be coming to? It's just Apple Windows.
That's it. Windows people still have to access it. There's not an app for Windows. They have to access it through the EEAP.mobi.
Does anybody use Windows anymore?
Some people still do. Unfortunately, we have somebody here in the office.
We have somebody here in the office? Who is it?
It's Michelle. So,
all right, we'll forgive Michelle. That does seem to be the right person to forgive.
Anyway.
All right, so the logic here is the app. Please download the app. We have the client centers inside. The passwords here in the office you can call us for. You might already have it, and so you can download that. You'll need a username and password to access that, and that will be just absolutely fantastic, brilliant for you. Your people will be able to get the IIPP out there in the field. They'll be able to do tailgate lessons for them, get their signatures, and that will all plug right back in for you. So that is there for you. And they'll also be able to watch all of the webinars off that app that are there, including this one that will post in the next day or two to their app sign. All right.
Okay, before we get to the questions and answers, and go ahead and start sending them if you have them. But Michael,
if you are not a client of EEAP, we will come out and do a free on-site evaluation of your injury illness prevention program, your machinery, your equipment, and no charge, one time, to show you a little bit of what we do and to make sure you're up to code. Give us a call if we can help you. Call to race.
Okay, and we are now ready for questions and answers. We do have a few of them here. So let's go ahead and get started. Somebody's asking, will we be able to print out for notes? Well, there will be a replay, so you can access a replay. Otherwise, if you need something beyond that, if you want the slides, maybe you can email me, rick@eeap.net. I'll be happy to make the presentation into a PDF and send that to you. It says, let's see here else. Where can you download the IIPP for phone app?
Apple Tunes and do that. So iTunes and Google.
Just do a search for EEAP safety, and we will pop right up there, and you'll be able to download that app.
I think Michelle is claiming that Windows people are great. I have to agree with Michelle. Windows people are great, Michelle. I think they are great. I am totally teasing.
Okay, will there be access to review the recording again? Yes, sure. There will. If you're a client, the replay will be in your webinar, in your client center.
Yes.
And you'll also, all of you that registered, get a replay notification anyway.
The very few people that are not members of EEAP, the very few lucky guests, will get a replay.
Next question, will OSHA require access to the EEAP inspection reports and abatement forms if they come out?
Give me that one again.
It says, will OSHA require access to the EEAP inspection reports and abatement forms?
No. EEAP, when they come out to your job site, they will not require those things on the job site at that period of time. If they come to your factory or manufacturing facility, they might request them, but they do not have. You don't need to give them that very second. I recommend that when somebody comes out to your facility at a manufacturing or plant, we're not speaking of a job site, and they ask you for your injury illness prevention plan or documents or IIPP or the inspection reports or the abatement records, your response to them is, I would be glad to get that for you. If you can put that into a formal request, I'll get that to you right away. They have a little checklist that they put out, and they put these little lines on it, tell them what you need, and they'll give that to you. That should buy you roughly 5 days. And depending on the circumstances, the district managers are good people. They will give you an extension. But that's the way you want to do it. You just don't want to be giving them records right on the get-go right there. It's just too much. You're frantic, and really the idea is to get them what they need and then help them on to the next business that they can help get into compliance.
Okay, next question here. Is it required to have an IIPP in Spanish?
No. At this present time, there is no requirement to have the individual document of the IIP in Spanish. Documents that are required to be in Spanish are translated in Spanish and done. There are very, very, very few of them. And the reality of it is the lessons are in Spanish and the training's in Spanish, but there's no requirement at this point. And I think the reason for it is, Rick, is because even though Spanish is the dominant second language in California, the reality is there is Punjabi and Vietnamese up north, and those are dominant languages in some areas, and you would just be hit and miss to try to communicate with everybody. So IIPP, English is the language right now, and that's what it's in.
Now, when it comes to the heat illness prevention program, that is one that they actually, with the new law that passed here earlier this year, it is required to have that particular program written in Spanish.
And for the record, EEAP has written it in Spanish and translated and put that in your client center.
Exactly.
So we have that locked.
So that one program, yes. All of the others in the IIPP at this point.
Rick, do we charge our clients any more for translating that document?
No, we do not.
No, we did not.
Part
of the service. We're not into nickel and dime.
Okay. Let's see here. It says, where do I get a copy of your anonymous safety report? I guess they're talking about the sticker.
I can do two things for you. I put it on a nice vinyl sticker. I can print it for you. They are really low cost. You just call us in the office and ask for Carla, and Carla can do that. You can really ask anybody in the office for them, and they'll transfer you to the right person and get you those stickers. Or if you just want the PDF file of it, really, that you can print up on a paper off your own computer, I'll send it to you for free. I mean, this isn't about making a big dollar here. I really am just trying to pay the cost of the sticker because I know you need to have this. Your employees out there at times, I've seen some phenomenal employers, and even the good employers have a hard time making everybody happy all the time. And you really need to give people a way to complain about you anonymously that we can keep it in-house.
Yes, and you can also order that through the sticker store right off of our website.
Yes,
as well.
yes, right off the sticker off the website. We do that as a free service to our client base.
Can we upload our inspection reports?
That's very good. You can upload the inspection reports. The inspection reports are on your client center already. They're put there. Then you're sent an email that they're there for you. You can print them out. I think you can download them from there. And they're a PDF file that you can download. So yes to downloading them, uploading them. If you have specific reports that you're creating yourself and you want me to put in there, give us a call in the office. Let's talk to you directly about that and what my IT team can do, how big they are, how many of them they are, so we can keep them all on the client center. And the answer could be very well yes. We just got to see what that looks like.
We have a really good question right here. As it says, it's understood that the responsible person will be named in the IIPP, but will the person or persons that are delegated to need to be named as well?
They will not need to be named. Those people change, and depending on the month, you might be delegating a different task to different people. The Cal OSHA code does not state that the delegated people need to be named, so thus we do not name them.
Okay. Can we upload our own audits, and can your system report results of audit along with pics? Their own audits.
What are you talking about, Mr. Roman?
Well, it looks like maybe if somebody is doing their own inspections, they're wanting to know if those can be uploaded.
Yes, we can do those. Just tell us what those are, send them to us. Call us first in the office and let us figure that out. And I want to comply with what you have. I mean, good night. My online client center really is great keeping everything in one spot. Later down the road, that might be a feature that I'm able to add, hopefully, but right now I don't. So you might call us and give us a heads up and tell us how many there are, and we'd love to add those for you.
Let's see.
We're probably going to have thousands of documents coming in now, Rick, that we've got to upload. Listen, that's going to be a problem for me. But if you're one guy, bring it on in. Let's see. First come, first serve.
Okay. Once we get our employees to sign off on the forms on the app, will those signatures be uploaded to our client centers automatically?
It will be uploaded automatically. If somebody uses the app to do that, they will be uploaded to your client center automatically without you doing anything. So thus, at the end of the day, the next day, you can go in and see all the signatures there. It really is a marvel thing that will save you hours and hours of stuff. If the girls in the office don't love you now, I promise you they will love you when you tell them that they don't have to gather and file all the paperwork for the guys in the field. No offense to men in general who aren't good at shuffling paperwork, that they didn't do that. So this will be a great thing for them.
And right now that's available with all the safety lessons. We're in the midst here getting ready to start creating some forms that are going to be in there for you, and the same things will work there as well. It says, do you have to have a heat IIPP if you do not have employees that work outside?
What you're speaking of is you're combining the terminology IIPP with a heat illness program, and they're basically two separate things. Remember, the injury illness prevention program is the umbrella, and then the heat illness is one of the staffs underneath it that hold that up. So the answer to the question is this: you need a heat illness program if you meet the requirements for heat illness. If they're not working outside, then they might not hit that. But I do recommend, for the sake of the time in this webinar, you do check out on our client center or on your smartphone app the Heat Illness 2015 app update changes that we put there. That will tell you exactly everything you need to know about the heat illness, and it's very good. It's one of our most popular webinars we've done.
Exactly. Okay. It says, in the cleaning business, our employees are required to have them worn. Are they required to wear safety work shoes? Cleaning business, they want to know if their employees are required to wear safety work shoes in a cleaning business.
So when you say that, the first thing that comes to mind is, what are they wearing? Are they wearing flip-flops? Then yeah, they probably need something better. Are they wearing Crocs? They got holes, and chemicals could get in their socks and then soak into their skin, so I'm not really thrilled about that. If you're working in an environment, I think at the very least should be a non-slip shoe. I don't say boot because if you're in the cleaning environment, you don't really want to boot with a steel toe. That doesn't make sense. But there are some non-slip rubber sole shoes that they can have. I'm very confident, very interested in shoes when I walk into facilities, and I really think that the non-slip shoes in the workplace is really, especially with a set of cleaning employees, I really think a non-slip with the moppings of the floors or possibly they could do gives them better traction. Non-slip rubber sole shoe.
That looks like we have gotten to the end of the questions. Wait, one more came in. It says, when Cal OSHA policies change, does EEAP automatically make adjustments to our IIPP?
We do. We do instantly. We have people here that are watching every sort of instant news or thing that's coming out of the Cal OSHA system. Our ear to talking with all the district managers, the appeals board upstairs, not upstairs in our building, I mean, but upstairs in Sacramento, they have that when it comes to everything. We are looking at all the laws. When laws change, your books are updated. This is one of the benefits of being an ongoing participant of the EEAP program. Because once you're on board, I maintain your book at no additional cost. The heat illness changes come out, and I know all of our emails got flooded with, hey, buy this, buy that, here's a webinar. And the reality is we do it for no extra charge. You pay a little bit of fee per month, and we just make sure you're pretty as a pumpkin pie. And that really is the best thing about what we're doing for you.
And with the client center and the app, I mean, we're talking, I mean, it's there available to you. You don't have to reprint a book or anything. It's just always there, basically a living, breathing document right there in your client center. So anyway, that looks like the last question that we got today. That was some good participation. We hope that these answers were helpful to you. If you have any other questions, feel free to email them, rick@eeap.net. We're always here to answer your questions and help in any way we can. And we appreciate you guys coming out and look forward to meeting with you again next month when we'll send out another invite for you. Michael, some closing remarks?
I just want to say thank you for what you guys do for us. Thank you for the business. We're here to serve you. If you have any problems, you can give us a call in the office. If your schedulers or anybody else are not meeting your needs, you always feel free to call and ask for Lori McFade or myself or Rick, and we would be glad to help you with any issues you have. We are here to help you. And with that being said, see you next time.
Goodbye.